Miikka Kiprusoff's arrival in Calgary immediately changed the fortunes of the team. But it wasn't the result of a blockbuster trade. The transaction of November 16, 2003 was more about survival than anything else. The Flames had missed the playoffs the previous 7 seasons. But with Darryl Sutter cracking the whip, the team was invigorated. That aside, it didn't look like Sutter's lash would take the Flames very far, especially with starter Roman Turek sidelined indefinitely, and prospect Danny Sabourin not ready for primetime, leaving affable backup Jamie McLennan standing alone. He was hanging tough, but starting to fade. After falling to the Oilers, the Flames dipped to 6-8-2. So Sutter, less than a year removed from his coaching days in San Jose, took advantage of the Sharks, who'd installed Evgeny Nabokov and Vesa Toskala as their goaltending tandem, a situation that left Kiprusoff watching from the press box. Sutter used a 2005 second-round pick to buy McLennan some help. Sutter knew that McLennan could give him short-term starter minutes, but he wasn't going to be able to play 30 solid games in a row. It just wasn't the 32-year-old McLennan's skill set. The deal for Kipper didn't make waves around the league, nor did it thrill anyone in Calgary. Remember, this was a 27-year-old goalie with a career record of 14-21-3, including a horrendous 5-14 record the previous season. But since Sutter was the Sharks coach during that stretch, he had the inside scoop. He told reporters the Sharks were terrible in those 19 games, so bad that it could have been God between the pipes, and it wouldn't have mattered. Players heard the news, and Kiprusoff showed up to his first day on the job in Calgary to little fanfare and low expectations. Sean Donovan remembers that he and his teammates didn't know anything about the new goalie, but Sutter was excited. And David Marcoux, the Flames goalie coach at the time, wasn't expecting much. He viewed Kiprusoff as a band-aid solution until Turek returned to the crease. The first step upon Kipper's arrival was for equipment manager Gus Thorson to get the new Flames goalie geared up to Sutter's satisfaction. After Thorson got Kipper's gear hung up in the locker room, Sutter walked in, saw the teal trim on his pads, and told Thorson his goalie wasn't wearing that color on the ice. So Thorson got to work, covering the light parts of the pads with masking tape, and spraying the rest with black contact cement to cover up the teal. It was a crude job, which required Thorson to spend additional hours cutting little pieces of black duct tape to cover up the rest of the teal. Then he pulled from his cupboard a new white mask, which happened to be the right size, and decorated it with flame stickers. Wrapping up the groundwork, Thorson reached out to the Sharks equipment manager, who passed along the concise summary of the new goalie. Really quiet, doesn't ask for much, but likes his skates ridiculously sharp. Still, no one had seen Kiprusoff stop a puck. But given the Flames' level of desperation, maybe the new guy would be a suitable stopgap. Proof of Kiprusoff's suitability arrived at the first practice. When Marcoux first saw Kipper in action, he was struck by his hands. The new goalie was catching everything. Marty Jelena said the guys simply couldn't score on their new goalie. In his first game, Kiprusoff earned first star honors in a 2-1 win over the Canadiens. In his second start, he picked up another 2-1 win over Chicago. On December 8th, Kipper was named the Defensive Player of the Week. His numbers were already dazzling. A record of 6-1-0, a goals against average of 1.71, and a save percentage of .928. His numbers were particularly amazing considering his gear. Thorson had done a perfectly fine job, but it turned out the gear wasn't actually his. The name on the pads wasn't Kiprusoff, it was Nabokov. According to Kiprusoff, his goalie partner in San Jose didn't like the pads. So Kipper tried them out, liked them, and brought them to Calgary. They worked pretty well, even though the fit was off. From behind the net in practice, Marcoux snapped a picture of Kipper that revealed a large gap between his legs when he butterflied. He showed his goalie photos of other NHL goalies in the same position, with no gap whatsoever. He suggested going with a little bit bigger pads, and Kiprusoff agreed to give it a shot. New gear was ordered, and when it arrived, Kipper pulled it out of the box, strapped it on, and blanked the Carolina Hurricanes 1-0. According to Thorson, Kiprusoff was so low maintenance that he was an equipment manager's dream. By Christmas, the Flames' new goalie was 11-3-2 with a 1.48 goals against average. Then he sprained a ligament in his left leg, which put him on the shelf with Turek. And unknown to outsiders, Jamie McLennan had fractured his sternum a couple weeks earlier. But with little choice, the veteran gutted it out, starting 8 straight games. Tipper returned on February 10th and won the first of 3 straight. By the trade deadline, Turek was cleared for duty, and with 3 goalies available, McLennan was traded to the New York Rangers as part of a package to acquire Chris Simon. There were no hard feelings for McLennan, who returned to the Flames in 2006. The Flames punched their ticket to the playoffs in Game 80, a 1-0 victory on the strength of a goal by Jerome Iginla and a shutout by Kiprusoff, who established the NHL's modern-era record for goals against average at 1.69. After dispatching the Vancouver Canucks in the first round, the Flames traveled to Detroit. There, they opened the series with a 2-1 overtime victory. Afterward, a handful of players sat around, rehashing the game, The guys were giddy, realizing that with Kipper they had a chance to do something special. But even the Flames' subsequent run to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals failed to make believers of everyone. As the NHL emerged from the 04-05 lockout, many observers were writing off the Flames with their old-school brand of hockey and flash-in-the-pan netminder. People were comparing Kiprusoff to Blaine Lacker or Steve Penny, guys who'd been one-year wonders. In retrospect, it's obvious he had so much more to offer. He had all the right tools in his toolbox. In 2005 to 2006, the start of 7 consecutive campaigns with 70 or more appearances for Kiprusoff, he captured the Vezina Trophy, and, Kipper being Kipper, he didn't show up at the NHL Awards banquet. By then, his reticence was well established. When he signed his final contract with the Flames, a 6-year deal, he skipped the press conference. And he'd find a way to dodge reporters on locker cleanout day. And when he retired in 2013, there wasn't any fuss. He wasn't a guy who was front and center. He was good at his job, and he was a professional, which included being a cool customer on the ice. One night at the Saddle Dome, he uncharacteristically slid out of position, forcing Denny Gauthier to barrel into the crease to fend off 2 shots. Appreciative, Kiprusoff casually skated into the shallow slot to give the defenseman a thank you tap on the shin pads, while the enemy continued to swarm. He had a calming presence. When he got scored on, he'd just turn, flip his mask up, squirt some water in his mouth, and put his mask back down like nothing happened. He never threw tantrums or got out of control. In the first round of 2007, the Flames were being overwhelmed by the Red Wings, who pounded Kiprusoff with 97 shots through the opening 2 contests. Near the end of Game 5, Kipper was mercifully pulled by coach Jim Playfair, but McLennan lasted 18 seconds before hatcheting Johan Franzen and getting ejected. But there were still 3 minutes left in the game. Playfair glanced down the bench. Kiprusoff looked over, grinned and winked, pulled down his mask, and hopped back into the fray. Thorson remembers a trip into Anaheim, when he and the rest of the staffers couldn't unload the equipment truck until after 1 a.m. because of a concert. In the wee hours of the morning, they hauled their butts from the hotel to the Honda Center to do the heavy lifting. Kipper and Jay Bomeister showed up to help them hang up the gear. These types of gestures made staff and teammates like Kiprusoff even more. In hindsight, the Kiprusoff trade was remarkable. It breathed life into a fatigued franchise. The same team that finished 15 points out of a playoff spot the year Iggy led the league with 52 goals and 96 points. The Sharks did well enough with the pick, selecting Mark-Edward Vlasic 35th overall. Meanwhile, Kiprusoff finished with 319 wins, 31st on the NHL's all-time list. He may have retired with a year left on his deal, but for 9 seasons, the Flames had 0 worries between the pipes. The most important position on the ice was in good hands. For a time, he was as good as anybody in the world. For years in Calgary, fans were spoiled because for 70 games a year, they had elite goaltending. Everyone was 3 inches taller and 30 pounds heavier when Kipper was in net. There was an extra level of confidence, because his teammates knew he'd bail them out. McLennan and Kiprusoff remained close, despite the ocean between them. They're lifelong friends, who keep in touch by sending each other funny videos and memes. When the Flames were planning Kipper's jersey retirement ceremony, they tasked McLennan with making sure his elusive goaltending partner would actually show up. McLennan's confirmed that Miikka's flight's booked, and he's planning to be at the Saddle Dome on the evening of March 2nd. But he jokes that you never know for sure with Kipper. McLennan thinks it'd be funny if fans saw what Miikka's really like, because he's hilarious. As McLennan puts it, Miikka's one of the good ones. And Flames fans will have an opportunity to celebrate Kiprusoff's legacy when the Flames retire his number on March 2nd. That's all for this look back at Miikka Kiprusoff. Thanks for tuning in. Please like and subscribe to support the channel.